Hi, everyone. We're really excited to welcome you here, and we're happy to see you. My name is Anne Fran, and I am one of the founders and leaders of Swing Left Peninsula. Tonight, I'm joined by at least three of our other leaders here, or four maybe, Bruce, Richard, Scott, Laura, and we also have a special guest, Lizzie Hybor, who is a Swing Left staffer from the National Swing Left, and she's the West Coast organizing manager. So next slide. Let me just get myself organized here. So this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. First, please sign up for our next monthly meeting on June 18th. The sign up link is going in the chat right now. And we meet every month on the third Tuesday. And please share this link with your friends who may want to get involved too. Every month we just get you informed about what's coming up in the coming weeks, about how you can get involved. So speaking of links, yes, we will be putting a lot of links in the chat today, but don't worry, we will be sending an email with all of these links in the next few days. So you can get them in the chat and in the email. And also note on this agenda that there is time at the end of the call to chat with leaders. That's totally optional, of course, but stick around if you'd like to ask us questions or give us suggestions. We'd really love to talk to you at the end of the call if you're up for it. So next slide. So we always like to start with some good news to counterbalance the prevailing doomsday media that's bombarding us all the time. So we just pull together a few tidbits every month. So first on the list here is, we mentioned even last month also that Biden finished the first quarter with nearly $100 million more cash on hand than Trump had. But what I really loved learning in the last week or so is one of the practical implications of that cash difference. For example, I recently learned that Biden has 100 staffers in place in the state of Wisconsin, and Trump has 0 in place in Wisconsin so far. So he has other things he's paying for right now. Second, you likely know that abortion has been a winning issue for Dems since the 2022 Dobbs decision. But when abortion's on the ballot, Dems turn out. So the exciting thing is look at all of these states this year that are have abortion on the ballot or likely to be on the ballot. And several of them are really crucial. For example, New York has an abortion ballot measure, and it is so critical to winning back the House. There are 6 toss-up House seats in New York this year. So getting that Dem vote out for the abortion ballot measure will also help with those House seats. Montana, for example, is a crucial Senate seat for holding the Senate, and so on. Of course, Arizona and Nevada are crucial up and down the ballot. So we're hoping those ballot measures come to pass. And so then the third tidbit we have here is just last week, the Supreme Court handed us sort of a gift. It has its procedural complications, but they handed us a gift of sorts by preserving a new Louisiana map that will add one more Black majority district, at least for this 2024 election. So that means we will likely gain a House seat this year in Louisiana, of all places. And finally, the doomsday media also likes to talk quite a bit about like, oh, will there be enough volunteer momentum this year for the Dems and so on. But we learned last week in a Swing Left national call that they are seeing quite the opposite. So much more is happening this year compared to the same date in previous cycles, such as there's been more letter adoption this year by this time in the year than in previous cycles. Same with door knocking, more door knocking this year by mid-May than in previous cycles. And I really loved hearing that Swing Left has fostered no less than like 50 new grassroots chapters this year. And that's on top of hundreds that have existed in the last, since 2017. So in every corner of the country, there's new chapters popping up, and that just makes me feel like volunteers are really fired up, and that gets me fired up. more fired up, and I hope that does the same for you too. So that's our good news. Let's keep going. Next slide. Also, every month we like to review our targets that our particular chapter is working on. So there are target states and districts. We include here the entire US map to show you Swing Left's national targets. But our Swing Left Peninsula chapter, and indeed most West Coast chapters and activists, are focusing on the key locations and races in our neighborhood, like our corner of the country. So that means we're focusing on Nevada and Arizona up and down the ballot, and California, which has several key races that are key to retaking the US House. And then note that we at Swing Left Peninsula have also been working with organizers in North Carolina since 2020. So we often get involved in and recommend strategic actions in North Carolina as well. Next page, next slide. So this is just a map to show you there are 4 very tight or toss-up House races in California this year. So Swing Left in general is focusing on all 4 of those. Bay Area activists and our team is focusing mostly on the 2 districts in the Central Valley that are shown here. And there are also 2 swing districts in Southern California, and for the most part, the LA chapters are focusing on those. So you can see that these 2 Central Valley districts range from Modesto in the north to Bakersfield in the south. And honestly, the cities in the top district, the northernmost district in CA13, are a fairly easy day trip for those of us on the peninsula and in the Bay Area, while CA22 is better for a weekend trip for Bay Area activists like us. And we'll talk more about these in a bit. Just so you know, Biden carried both of these Central Valley districts by over 10% in 2020, and we lost these House seats by just a very few votes in 2022. So they're really, really flippable seats. And that's why we're spending a lot of time calling, knocking, writing, and fundraising for these 2 races. Next slide. So this is also something we review each month in these meetings, and it's just sort of showing you where we are in the year and what's going on. Yeah, we are in mid to late May. And the first thing I want to point out is near the top of the slide, just sort of under the month names, you'll see that the Nevada and Arizona primaries are coming up. So there's a few races in those states where the Democrat isn't determined yet, but should be very soon. And then the other thing I want to point out is, okay, let's face it, the GOTV or voting season is really expanded these days. Some states are, like Pennsylvania, a crucial state, starts early voting in September. So the voting or election or what have you, mail-in ballot season, GOTV, it starts in September and includes all of October and obviously the first part of November. So what I'm trying to make the point here is we're in mid-May. That means we really just have all of June, July, and August to get our ducks in a row and get ready for GOTV or get out the vote, which begins in September. So not to scare you, but we got to get going. All right. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, one of our other leaders.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. That was great. And we are going. I mean, there are great things happening now. So we just we'll be building momentum and counting on everyone to help us build that momentum going through the summer and into the voting season in the fall. So anyway, so we're going to talk about money, particularly today. Money matters. I'm sure we all know that. And what I've learned is that especially effective money matters. So there's a lot to talk about with money. There's donating, there's fundraising, there's what donations are effective, what donations aren't. Right now, there's probably 1,000 opportunities to donate money to political causes. And we're going to present 2 of them over the next few minutes. I'll tell you soon about a fundraiser we're co-sponsoring for North Carolina. That event's next week, and that event features Heather Cox Richardson. And then we're going to talk about Swing Left National's fundraising research, followed by a fundraising page that we're launching under their guidance, and why that is also a great conduit for donations. So I mentioned the fundraiser coming up next week, and of course we're accepting donations now. North Carolina is a purple state whose legislature is Republican controlled due to a decade of gerrymandering. There's a grassroots group, All In for North Carolina. They are raising early money for strategic work to win state legislative House seats back and break Republican control of the North Carolina state legislature. The money donated here provides the North Carolina House Democratic Caucus with the resources and technical support they need to win back multiple seats. So I've phone banked with that group, AINC, and I've gotten to know them. They're very effective. And Jeff Blum, their founder and the leader for this fundraiser, has extensive experience. He's retired now. About 15 years ago, he co-chaired a coalition to win national health insurance and raised $53 million to enact what eventually became Obamacare. I'm proud that we're co-sponsoring this fundraiser with AINC. It's raised just over $200,000 now, and it's on the way to well on the way to the $300,000 goal. I'm also inspired. Just last year, Democrats swept the Huntersville, North Carolina City Council with the help of AINC, and there are numerous Democratic victories across the state. The new leader of the North Carolina Democratic Party, Anderson Clayton, brings me hope, for she's a young, dynamic, skilled leader who is building up that party. I'm going to play right now a 40-second, I call this a stoplight gratitude recording from her, just to get a sense of her and the enthusiasm in the state.
Hey folks, my name is Anderson Clayton. I'm the state party chair in North Carolina. I'm coming to you all from a car right now because we are traveling as we always are at a state party, and just trying to make sure that we have boots on the ground effort everywhere across our state this year. North Carolina is so important to getting Joe Biden back in the White House and making sure that we take the state in a way that we have not since 2008, and all of your hard work is desperately a part of that. So thank you all for your contributions, for making North Carolina a priority this year. The South is worth fighting for, and the South is worth saving. So thank you for being a part of it. We're so excited to have y'all.
Oh, she says that's so much better than I can. So the link is in the chat, and please support that fundraiser. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce Lizzie Hybor from Swing Left National. First, I'm going to share a couple thoughts. So I've been a political donor for about 7 years. And I've learned a few things. One is that when I donate to a candidate or a group, I get on their email list and I hear from them a lot. I've really learned about the value of the unsubscribe link at the bottom of those messages. I've also thought about where I send my donations. Should I contribute to a Senate candidate who is raising tons of money and realistically has no chance of winning? How about a candidate who's a slam dunk? How do I know my contributions are used effectively? So I've adopted a few practices. One is to instantly unsubscribe from any group that uses all caps in the subject line, both to protect my financial and my mental health. Another is not to donate in response to emails I get from groups I've never heard of, for there are a lot of them, particularly PACs that tell a great story, but they don't use money well. There are some PACs that are effective, I just want to let you know. I wonder about donating to effective grassroots groups versus donating to specific campaigns. Effective groups are in their communities year-round. They become trusted messengers, and they can turn out voters. Campaigns pop up for a few months and vanish after the election, taking their data with them. Yet campaigns need to hire staff. They buy materials like yard signs, they run ads, and they target and turn out voters for their candidates in ways that grassroots groups cannot. I'm absolutely convinced that the answer to the question, should I donate to grassroots groups or campaigns, is yes. Support both. The next question is, how can I donate most effectively? There are a lot of groups and a lot of candidates out there. So I've learned that Swing Left has an excellent research team that can help steer donations, and we're going to hear about that in a minute. Also, we in Swing Left Peninsula have worked with a lot of people and groups across the country, and we support organizations that we know and trust, which is why I told you about the North Carolina fundraiser. So now I'll introduce Lizzie Hybor. She's the new West Coast organizing field manager with Swing Left National. Lizzie's a seasoned campaign worker, including as an organizing director for the Biden 2020 campaign and for the California Democratic Party in 2021, and the Adam Schiff for Senate 2024 campaign. She's worked for Together SF and is now in her second stint with Swing Left. She's based in San Francisco, which is great news because she's nearby. So I searched her out on the web and hope I turned up the right Lizzie Hybor. If I did, I learned that she received a fellowship in college and spent 2 weeks in Saudi Arabia. That was while she was earning a Bachelor of Arts in International Relations along with minors in French and political science. So Lizzie's going to give us insights into Swing Left's fundraising work. Welcome, Lizzie. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, no one ever finds that fun fact about me, but that is a fun fact. Yes, I did spend some time in the Middle East. So I am really happy to be here with you all. I did just start with Swing Left a couple weeks ago, but love the organization and just will say in my years here working in California politics, have encountered so many wonderful Swing Left chapters and groups and have always enjoyed working with them. So I'm really happy to be here with you and sort of be working on the inside with Swing Left, which is really nice. So just want to kind of quickly, this is probably stuff you already know, but just want to quickly say how these are our strategic priorities on a national level. They are influencing the work that you are all doing in your chapter, and they are how we also kind of the basis and sort of something that we hold on to as we also think about the races and the places that we want to invest money and where we want to help people direct their fundraising. So, you know, obviously our North Star is winning back a federal trifecta and building power in the states on the ground. We also are just, you know, really committed, I think, and I think the work that you all are doing is real and serious and effective, and we're committed to making sure that that is happening at a regular basis. So we don't want to waste your money. We don't want to waste your time. We know that everyone has other things going on in their life, families, jobs, and we know though that, you know, what happens politically affects that. So thankful that you're spending the time to do this kind of work, but we want to make sure you're doing it effectively. And on that same, you know, side of things, as far as the money piece of it, we're simplifying it. We're unifying this fundraising platform so that it makes it easy for you. As Bruce was saying, you don't have to comb the internet and find, you know, all these different places and candidates that you can donate money to. We're already kind of doing that work for you on the back end, helping evaluate these races so that when you come to us, when you come to your Swing Left Peninsula fundraising platform, you know your money's going to the right place, whether it's 5, 10, a lot of money, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing that continually. And, you know, just as a note, like we are really always committed to making sure that our strategy, our messaging, the on the ground work that we're doing, the money that we're raising, the candidates that we're working with, that everything is really aligned with kind of the challenges that we're facing and the important moment that we're in right now in 2024. We know this is a really big year, and we just want to make sure that we are kind of unified on that across all parts of our strategy. So we can go to the next slide. And, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but obviously our biggest priorities here are winning back the House, defending the Senate, and making sure that we get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris there back in the White House. And I think the other place that is important to note is we're also focused on continuing to build that power at the state level. We've seen over the past few years how that gets eroded and what that can result in for a lot of different states, especially for me as a woman, and how that's affected abortion access across the country. So this is a really also important part of our strategy and making sure that we're including that in everything that we do as well. And so the next slide will have just a little bit of information that might be familiar if you've been around Swing Left for a while, and if you're newer, this is just kind of to give you the street cred about why why we know what we're talking about. So if you've kind of joined Swing Left chapter here in the last few months or last year, this may be new to you, but we've been raising money for the last, many years. We've been also not just raising money, but we've also been focused on knocking doors, making phone calls, writing letters, doing all of that groundwork as well, because all of these things work hand in hand, right? So we don't obviously live in all of these states that we're working in, so we need to be funneling that fundraising and that money and those donations so that the folks that are on the ground day in and day out can be supported. And we can also continue to do work that is, for us, where when we can go knock doors, when we can make phone calls to supplement the things that they're doing day in and day out. And obviously, letters, I think, are crucially important, and we're always doing a lot of research so that those are going to be most effective. And they're also just a fun thing to do, which I enjoy on the side, writing some letters. I think someone joined and mentioned they're writing letters when they have some downtime during this, so it's great. And obviously, these are all of the wins we had. So I won't bloviate on this part, but I want to get into the nitty-gritty for you all about here on our next slide, which should have kind of how we evaluate and decide where we think donations should go, right? So like Bruce mentioned, it's not just, I actually am not intimately involved in this part of it. Our political team, our fundraising team, a lot of those folks at the high level there and our research team are constantly looking into the current state of the race across all of the races across the country. They're communicating with our partners. They're making sure they know what's happening. And so that we know that where your money is going to the best place possible, right? So we look at these 4 places: race competitiveness, the cost of the market, the health of a campaign, and how much impact is your actual contribution going to make. So for race competitiveness, there's a few things here, but really what I kind of think about with this is this race going to be like a critical tipping point for Democratic success? Is this going to be the thing in that state or in a larger scale, right, with the House, that's going to be one of those handful of races that will decide for us? And again, that can change over the course of many months as we're doing this. And so that's why this isn't something for us that stays stagnant. And I'll speak to that a little bit as we kind of move forward. But we're always using these 4 criteria to evaluate. So a race may be very competitive now, and in 4 months, that may change, right? The news cycle changes, things that happen in that district change. So it's really important that we're kind of keeping an eye on that. We're also going to look at demographic information, details about the district, what's happening, what were the previous election results? Was it a very close race? Was it a very large margin? Is there a registration advantage for one party? Are there underserved communities that we need to be talking to that, are not going to get the kind of attention where that kind of money that we route to them will really help with that. So we're also, like I said, going to oftentimes consult with partners who are maybe already on the ground in these places. So other organizations, local organizations that kind of have a lay of the land, and understand what this particular race might mean for that district or for that state. We also look at the cost of the market, which I think is something that I personally, when I learned about this, thought that was quite interesting. California, for instance, a very pricey state to do some things. Other states as well, it's very expensive. It might be difficult also if it's a very rural district to be able to travel the whole district and contact as many voters as we need to. And it's really important does it cost a lot of money to just run ads on TV in this district or to send mail to people in this district? Is it cost prohibitive, right? So thinking about, is this candidate, I would say, have a lot of money and cash on hand, then why are we going to direct a lot of money to them, right? Because they can already afford to pay for these types of things. And again, are there other groups spending money in this race, right? If there's a bunch of attention on it, and oftentimes I will say this, the news writes about a lot of these groups and they get a lot of some of these races will get a lot of attention and then they get this huge dump of cash. And that's great. But that means maybe that we can direct our money to a race that's being a little bit, neglected perhaps, or isn't getting that same kind of attention that does need this sort of money to be able to kind of make get the kind of wins that we want. Then we've got campaign health, which I think is really interesting. And I will say, Anne talked about this earlier with the $100 million that Biden has as an advantage. What does that mean in a real way, right? That means there can be organizers on the ground already. There's people, there's staff that's already doing that work. And that to me is part of that campaign health, right? Are they, getting enough resources that they're on the ground and working? There are campaigns, I'm sure you've probably already crossed paths that maybe don't even have an organizing program yet. And you're like, how do we do this work? We know we should be talking to people now. So raising that money to be able to direct to them so that they can get those boots on the ground and that then we can come in as volunteers and supplement that work is really, really, really important, right? And the other piece is just, I want to make a note here about equity, right? There are a lot of candidates who maybe are running for the first time, who are, have certain disadvantages, right? Or, are from a marginalized community, or maybe they're like, they don't have a bunch of wealthy friends. There are some people that went to school somewhere or worked at a job and they've got a lot of rich friends they can call for money, or somebody who's a single parent who doesn't have a lot of time to sit on the phone. But we know that we need those kinds of folks in office and we need them to represent us because they really are beneficial, right? So if they're going to be having trouble, what we can do is be raising that money and directing that to them and really alleviating the time that they have to spend doing that so they can go out and really talk to the constituents in the free time that they do have, right? So it's really helpful from an equity standpoint to also kind of keep that in mind. And then lastly, I just think it's great, how will your contribution impact this race? I think, is it going to actually make a difference? Is it going to really allow for, like I said, that candidate to free up some more time to get out there in front of voters, to be talking to them and not behind the phone calling everybody that they know on a list or a bunch of people they don't know to try to raise money? Because I think from the work that you all have been doing for many years, getting out there, talking to voters and being in front of them is what's going to change their mind. And so unfortunate reality is we need money to do that. And we need money to be able to make those connections with folks. So this kind of work is really important. And we're always keeping these 4 criteria in mind as we're looking at the state of the race. And I'll say these typically, every month we're evaluating them and making sure that the current list of races that we have is really like, these are the ones that kind of fit in this. And if somebody all of a sudden, like I said, gets a huge influx of cash and it seems like they're going to be okay, maybe we'll lessen how much or we'll prioritize another race so that we're being effective in our donations. So like I said, ultimately, we want you to direct your money to where it's most needed and not just a bunch of random people because they are getting all the news, jazz, right? So let's head to the next slide because I want to talk a little bit about what races that you all are, going to be focusing on, and then how we kind of worked with Bruce to pull that into your particular fund. So first of all, I just want to note what's great is these are all places that you're already engaged in. You're already working on the other side of things, right? With the phone banking and canvassing and letter writing in these particular areas. So what we're doing is, using that energy, we're also going to use the fundraising strategy to supplement that, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we can't be there all the time, every day as volunteers, right? So having on the ground staff, getting that money into their hands, allowing them to build out that infrastructure, allows them to be there day in and day out. And from a selfish standpoint, makes our life easier as volunteers because we know they'll have a great operation when it's time for us to plug in and actually get out there and knock doors, right? So first off, I'm just going to give a little bit very briefly here. Some of you might know some of this, but just a little bit of the thinking behind each race and why these are a priority from a political standpoint and just kind of from a strategy standpoint for Swing Left National. So first off, in Arizona in general, which you all probably know, but supporting down ballot, races in Arizona is only going to help us boost votes for Ruben Gallego, right? So any sort of work that we're doing with these down ballot races is going to be really helpful. So for Arizona 1, this is a particular district that doesn't currently, right, have, we don't know who's going to be the candidate because the primary still is happening. So what will happen with the money that's donated here, as soon as that primary candidate is decided, this money gets directed right to them to give them a really good start, going into the general election. Short turnaround time as we looked at that calendar, right? So really going to be helpful for them to have that right away starting in August. This is one of the wealthiest congressional districts in Arizona, and it's located just outside of Phoenix. But that doesn't mean the person who's running is going to be wealthy, right? And is going to have a lot of cash. So we want to make sure they're prepared. And it is a district that did flip from red to blue in 2022. So it is very, very important that we keep protecting that and make sure that that stays blue. And Dems are already, competing in this. It's a really highly contested primary, and we don't want to get into that, but we want whoever does come out of that primary to be ready to take on the Republican. So we're building those funds, and they'll be ready to go. For Arizona 6, this is Kirsten Engel, and this is a rematch with the person that she lost to, which was by less than 1%, right? So anytime we get those really close margins, that's when we're like, hey, this is really, really important. This is only a handful of votes. This is somewhere where if we can get out there earlier and longer, and be talking to people and be investing in mail and ads and pulling all the levers, this is really going to make a difference. And just for reference, in case you don't know, it's in Tucson, and it kind of goes over towards the border with New Mexico. One really promising thing is that, she is gotten early support from the DCCC, and she's sort of the de facto nominee. So we kind of know where this is going to be going. But because she has that early support from the DCCC, anything that we get is going to really help build that infrastructure for her. Any money that we can get to her is going to be very, very helpful and strategic. And then I'm going to skip the California ones right now, and just also, since we're on Arizona, talk about the abortion access, signature collection process that's coming at this. So the money would be directed in this fund to the C4 that's kind of running that. It needs to get those signatures in by the beginning of July in order to qualify to be on the ballot. So they're still in that period where they're out on the ground collecting signatures, which it's not too hot in Arizona yet, but you know how it is. So it's a really tough, going to be some tough work doing that. But it's a grassroots initiative that's going to help make sure that we're protecting abortion access statewide, which, as Anne said earlier, any sort of these initiatives with abortion are going to benefit turning out Democrats across the board, right? So getting this on the ballot is going to be crucial to ensuring that we're getting more Democrats out there voting, because a lot of people just going to turn out, and it's going to lead to more Dem turnout. Higher turnout usually means more Dem turnout statistically. So that's great. And I think even though this is technically, I'll just note, it is technically independent, right, of the Democratic Party. So it's not like they're going to be saying, hey, we're only turning out Democrats, but they are going to be turning out people who are supporting abortion access, which I think 99% of people who support abortion access are going to also probably be supporting Democratic candidates. So this is going to be really crucial. And I think that's why strategically, when we were talking earlier, those down ballot races help with Gallego, right? Abortion access initiative is going to help us with all other Dem races in the state. So that's kind of Arizona. And then, California, I think, I mean, we all live here, so I know that it might be, some of this may be obvious and you might already know some, but, we've got Adam Gray in CA13, 600 votes was the difference, right? So, I mean, I think that's all I need to say, like that if we are out, that's 600 people, that's it. We need to find 600 people that we can talk to. So any of that money that can go towards him building that infrastructure to allow for them to talk to as many voters as possible over the next few months is really, really crucial. And that's a very large district and a very large part of the state. And so, in the middle there in the Central Valley, it includes some rural parts of the state. So any sort of money that can be going towards running ads and digital and mail and getting out to people as well beyond the work that we're all doing, I think is going to be really important. So that's why that is kind of a top of mind place. And we've got CA22, Rudy Salas, another one where the margin was very, very small, a couple thousand votes. So very strategic for us. And this is something that someone else said to me, but I will say this. I think CA22 personally is quite important. It is sort of no man's land in a sense that it's a little far from the really high activism of folks in the Bay Area. It's a weekend trip, like was mentioned. And it's a little far from the really high activism that we've got in LA. And so it's kind of can sometimes fall in this spot where it's not getting the same level of sustained support with the on the ground canvassing that maybe is needed. And so getting money directed there is just going to make sure that we have boots on the ground day in and day out, people who are there working with voters, again, getting that digital mail, et cetera, out. So that's all I'll say on those. And I will mention and say that we'll constantly be talking with you all and with your leadership committee, kind of making sure that the money is continually directed to the most effective places. So there may be over the next few months, hey, it turns out this place is kind of looking better, and this has become moved up in our list of a higher priority target. And we'll talk with you to see if that's something that makes sense to update in your fund. But it's always going to obviously be a conversation, and all of our, targets are always, I was going to say the top list of most effective anyway. So no matter what, you'll know that you're doing the most effective donations. And we purposely picked 5 because it's nice if you say, hey, I have $10 to donate, we'll split it evenly between all of them. If you've got $100 to donate, that's an even split. So that's all on that. And I'm going to pass it back to Bruce to kind of get into the nitty gritty of looking at the page for donations.
Bruce, you're muted.
Anyway, we'll take a moment for questions for Lizzie, and then I'll talk about our page a little bit more, follow up on what Lizzie said about that. I know there was a question, and actually I'll know this off the top of my head. Lizzie, do you know if ActBlue works with PayPal?
It should. I can double check, but I'm pretty sure it does. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just on the page and it's not on there.
Okay, I can double check with Heather. That might be just something on the page that we've got set up for you all, but I'll check.
Yeah, I've made hundreds of contributions through ActBlue with a credit card, and it's been okay, but I understand the concerns, so we'll check that out. Are there other questions? Other questions?
Yeah.
Think on the chat or anybody. Oh, Laura, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, Lizzie. Thanks so much for coming. Could you just take a moment and also explain that that what you've done for Swing Left Peninsula, there's funds like this all over the country. And so for someone who wants to set it and forget it at any level, either because they're working in the Central Valley and they want to support our fund as part of that work, or let's just say they want what I think of as the total stock market fund. Like you can for your retirement accounts, you don't have to pick stocks. You just say, put it all in a fund. You have funds like that as well. And that's not the main focus of this meeting, but I think it's important for people to know that Swing Left has created those options for people.
Yeah, that's a really great flag. And I'm just going to pop this in here. It's swingleft.org/funds, but I'll pop it in the chat. I don't think I can share my screen, which is totally fine. But you should take a look at this because it is, like Laura mentioned, we've got kind of 4 other things that you can do, right? We have an all-in fund. We have state-specific funds, super state-specific funds if you want to just donate to one state. We have federal funds. So there are different things that we do on that front from a national level for folks who maybe aren't affiliated with the group, right? Who aren't already doing this work, who want to kind of just say, I just need somewhere to go, help me. I don't want to do all of this. They can go in there and use that. And then we do this kind of work for folks also in other chapters. So if you're working in this, we can set up also a custom fund, which is basically what we've done here.
So I get questions all the time from relatives and friends and stuff they're not big volunteers or whatever, and they just want the answer to that question is, where do I put money for it to be the most effective? So I just think everyone should know Swing Left has done all of that work for us, and we're focusing on the races you mentioned for this chapter, but it's just a great resource for any time anyone asks you that question, because they know you're working and volunteering in politics.
Good. Thank you, Laura. Anne, you have your hand raised?
One thing that I've read a couple times when I look at Swing Left funds is that one of the benefits of going through this mechanism is that you don't get on all the mailing lists of the campaigns. So you want to just mention that and how that works.
Yeah, basically we are just connected directly with the campaigns. So any of the money that goes in through these funds is just going directly to them. Basically, I don't know, the magic of being wired, the equivalent of being wired right to them, basically. So we don't have to go through any of the wonky pages where you have to give away all of your information. You do have to give them your information for obviously federal reporting and all of that stuff. but you don't have to have your email address bought and sold by 1,000 different people around. You're just with us at Swing Left. We'll have your information. You donate through there. That's it. And like, you're not going to have the problem that Bruce has where he has to hit unsubscribe to everything. So it does help quite a bit. And again, also a selling point for friends and family if they're looking for things to donate. You know, you're probably already, I just have to say, I don't know how many texts and emails I've gotten that are in all caps that are like, you need to do this before everybody dies. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. You know, so we're going to try to help you eliminate those by just directing your funds that way and not getting on all those lists.
Yeah, and there is, I donated, and there's a window pops up right after I donated that says, do you want your information passed on to the campaign or not? I clicked, no, thank you. So just be aware. Deborah, you have a question, then we'll move on.
So, what do you think about those other, like, progressive turnout project, those ones that say they have boots on the ground sort of things, but you don't know, or are they just trolling for money? I mean, you don't.
You mean like other organizations?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
I
don't
can't speak
know about them.
specifically to that particular organization. There are lots of organizations like C4 PACs that have organizers and people on the ground that are doing things. You know, there's nothing bad about them by any means. I can't speak to any of them specifically. You know, I'd have to know a little bit more about which specific ones, but I always feel quite personally, I like to be able to direct the money directly to the campaign as much as I can, because I do know that they're doing the work specifically to try to make sure they're getting folks elected. A lot of those other C4s, they're doing that, or other, you know, organizations, they're doing that in tandem, but they're probably doing some other work. And if that's work you want to support and are interested in, I think that's great. You know, I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. That long-term infrastructure, long-term organizing work is also really, really important. So want to make sure that that's known as well.
Okay, Judith Stubbs, I know you have a question, but we need to move on, and we are sticking around.
It's a very fast question.
Okay, just please.
Yeah, how do we, this is a non-techie, sorry, but I've been working with you guys for probably 40 years. And so how do I stop all these texts on my phone? I talk to the phone, you know, my provider, and they don't want to.
Yeah, you reply, if you just reply with one word, stop, that should take care of it.
I am,
Okay.
but then 10 others pop up.
Then please stick around afterwards and we can confer about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and thanks, thanks, Lizzie, really appreciate that. So this is the donation page. I just want to show you this real briefly. The link is in the chat. And Lizzie told you about why we chose those specific targets. And today, Simon Rosenberg announced his first 10 endorsements, which are seats that he believes we can take away from Republicans. And I was really happy to see that our 4 target seats are on his list. So that's great affirmation of the Swing Left selection process. And we're just getting this page started. And the last time I looked in it, so far it's brought in $25. And honestly, those are my $25 because I donate to make sure everything's working. So here's what I'm asking. So if you've never donated before to like a political cause, now's the time to basically put a toe in the water and, you know, match my $25. And if that's beyond your budget, hey, donate $10, or you can leave me in the dust and donate $50. I mean, that'd be great. So something I often do, which is make a $25 or $50 emotional contribution, which I guess is a term. I got an email from an organization I know, and it's like, yeah, I really want to support you without thinking about it. I'll give them $25 or something. So if you do that and you're just in that mode right now, please, you know, kick in $25 or $50 on this page. And then also very important, if you're planning to make a significant political donation sometime soon, say $100 or $500 or $1,000, and you just need to decide where to make it, now is the time, and please make it through our page. The money will be used effectively, and it's really important to get this money into the field immediately. So heck, if you just donated to the North Carolina fundraiser, match that donation here, which is what I'm going to do. I've donated $300 to the North Carolina fundraiser, and I will do that on this as well. And the other thing I've done and I ask you to do is please pass the link on to your friends. And the way I'm doing it, which I've never done this before, is I created a little automated signature at the bottom of my outgoing email, and it says something like, want to win in 2024? Donate effectively here. And the link is there to our fundraising page. So that just automatically spreads the word out to people I don't normally ask. So thank you very much, and we'll move on.
Okay. One last question.
We'll take questions at the end again, Deborah. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, I'm back. We're gonna run through quickly because we're running out of time. All of the activities that are coming up in the next few weeks. And just to remind you, or if you haven't seen this before, we do have an all events calendar on our website. Rich will put the link in the chat, and again, we'll send it to you in an email in the next few days. This just lists everything we've talked about tonight and more. So you can click on any event there and find more information about it, and the RSVP link when you click on it. So thank you so much. Next slide. All right, one of our favorite things here at Swing Left Peninsula is vote forward letters. As most of you probably know, these are pre-printed letters that you just add a few sentences to. And this is really one of the main ways that you can help Dems get out the vote in November. We're preparing these letters all year. We're storing them in our garages, and then we're mailing them all in October. So we're printing and writing letters to all the states and districts that we've been talking about today: Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and California's Central Valley. These letters are going to infrequent voters who are likely to vote Democrats, they're likely to vote for Democrats when they do cast a ballot. So these letters are really one super strong way to make it more likely that they do cast a ballot this year, since they're infrequent voters. So let's go to the next page. So Swing Left and Vote Forward are hoping that volunteers across the country can prepare 10 million or more letters by mid or so October. Our Swing Left Peninsula team has been the leading letter producer in the country for several cycles. So we are confident that our team here on the peninsula can prepare 700,000 letters or more, with your help, of course. So that's the caveat. You can print your own letters at home from the Vote Forward website, or you can pick up free printed letters from us in one of the cities listed here. And the link to order letters for pickup is in the chat. And also in the chat is the party calendar, where you can sit and write with fellow peninsula dwellers in one of the cities listed here. So we really hope to see you at one of those parties soon. Next slide.
Okay, so I'm on for this one. So we have, six different training sessions coming up with the Bay Area Coalition, which I think reflects not only how important this election is, but also how sophisticated the grassroots are becoming. So I'm going to go down these fairly quickly. The links are going into the chat. The newest one, I just learned about this the other day, is Project 2025 Explained. The GOP has a 950-page plan to take control of the government and destroy our freedoms should they prevail in the 2024 elections. And we're finding out that voters don't know about the plan, or they don't believe the plan is serious when they do find out about it. So this training session explains the plan and how serious it is and how to talk to voters about the plan. So if you're phone banking, canvassing, or talking to people who tend to vote Republican, this is a really important session. Spanish for activists. This training is for people who are conversant in Spanish. It focuses on how to converse with Spanish-speaking voters in a way that helps earn their trust, with a focus on election-related terminology. We have a huge need for Spanish-speaking canvassers and phone callers. So please take the training and sign up for our events. or just if you're really solid on the Spanish, just go ahead and sign up. You don't need to have taken the training. Persuasion, bringing voters to our side. This session focuses on how to have one-on-one productive conversations with people who are persuadable and how to bring them over to vote for Democrats. It applies to phone bankers and canvassers. And in my experience, honestly, it's useful in my day-to-day life as well, just in general. And then how to connect with voters on abortion. Here's a topic that can sound terrifying. I attended this training last year and it was great. A lot of it's about how to listen and reflect and then help the person understand the nuance and the importance of the freedom that all of us want to make our own healthcare decisions. So that's also really important training. And then we have weekly trainings on Tuesday for canvassers and also training for phone bankers. Those trainings are not required. They're intended for people who want to just ease into phone banking or canvassing, and they're a good way to meet other volunteers. So next slide, and who's up next? Scott, you're up.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Scott Carlson. I'm a proud co-founder of Swing Left Peninsula, along with Anne Frann and our spouses and another couple way back March 2017, ancient history. You can maybe see a map over my shoulder, a map of California. I really should put up a map of Nevada instead, because I am all in on Nevada this year. It's just not possible to overstate the importance of the state in this election. As you saw previously, the presidency is important. Senator Jackie Rosen's seat is important. There will be probably an abortion access initiative on the ballot. And then there are, as you saw, there are maybe 3 congressional seats in Nevada that may end up in Swing Left's congressional fund. I heard that Trump said recently in a rally in Nevada that if he wins Nevada, the game is over. And it may be one of the few things that he's actually right about. But the game is not over, and we need players in it. And the way for you to get in the game is to canvass in Nevada. And the first chance you can get to do that will be on June 1st and 2nd in Reno and Sparks. Our first canvass that we're having jointly with Swing Left Santa Cruz, Indivisible YOLO, and possibly Indivisible Sacramento. You could drive up on Friday night and we will canvass, knock on doors on Saturday and Sunday. And what would you do in this canvass? There are really 4 things that you would be doing in this canvass. You would be talking to likely Democrats about issues that are of importance to them. And this is really important information because it'll be used for messaging for candidates and the party in the coming election cycle. They want to know what's on voters' minds. You're finding out what's on voters' minds. They take that information and use it. Secondly, you will possibly be registering people to vote or re-registering them. Thirdly, you'll be priming them for getting out to vote in November. The primary in Nevada will be on June 11, and we know that people who vote in primaries vote in general elections. So you're priming them both for the primary and for the general. And lastly, this is something that's very important in canvasses. You come across people who are really enthusiastic, want to do something, they don't know what to do. You tell them how to get involved, and getting those local volunteers is just invaluable. So we have about 25 people signed up so far for this canvas. There's really no experience that's needed. There will be a Zoom training next week, and there will be some training on site, on the ground as well. So please sign up. The link is in the chat. You can find it elsewhere. We can help you. I can help you with carpooling, with lodging recommendations. I personally have room in my car if you're coming from the South Peninsula, and find a friend. Find a friend or a family member to go with you. And if for health reasons or other reasons this is not something for you, find somebody who you think might be interested in doing it. There's also going to be a social event in Reno for canvassers on Saturday night. So it's just a really, it may seem early to you, but it's really a good time to get an early start in canvassing. There will be more of them in the fall, certainly, and some during the summer as well. But it's really time to get in the game, as I said. So stay tuned for more canvases in Nevada. There will also be canvases in Arizona as well, starting in September. So please give it a serious thought, sign up, and we'll get in the game. And so next slide and next person, please.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay. Back to me. So we also have canvases going on every weekend in the Central Valley. Again, in coordination with other Bay Area activists and chapters. These two districts are within our reach, literally and figuratively, in our quest to flip the US House. We've already mentioned how close these two gentlemen came to flipping those seats last time. And just to add on to what Scott said about why are we canvassing now in the Central Valley, it's not GOTV time, we know that. But really right now, besides what Scott said, we're trying to clean up the voter lists. We want to find out who's moved, who unfortunately may have passed away. We just need to get those folks off the list so that we don't knock on their door in our precious, precious time of the GOTV efforts. We want to talk to independents and sometimes Democratic voters and just ID if they are going to come to our side. It's all about cleaning up the list, identifying our supporters who are there in those houses now, so we can really be efficient when it's time to get out the vote in October. So as I mentioned, it is a fairly easy day trip to most of the cities listed here in District 13, the second group of cities, like Modesto. Many of you probably have been to Modesto before. However, we are so short of canvassers in the farther district, CD 22. Yes, it is a bit farther, and yes, it makes more sense to go for a weekend, for going Friday and coming back Sunday, or going Saturday morning and coming back Sunday. So if at all you have the ability to travel a little bit farther and stay for 2 or 3 days, that is so helpful. Again, as Lizzie mentioned, this district is sort of in no man's land, and it has the most odious perennial foe of ours, David Valadeo. He keeps beating us, and we shouldn't be losing to that guy. So anyway, for that, those weekend canvases, we do have carpool and lodging coordination help with that too. So I just want to say, for canvassing and phone banking, are you nervous? I'm sure you are. I feel almost nauseous when I'm about to head to a canvass, even though I've made myself do it in every election since 2016. But then it literally gets easier with each door or each phone call. So I really want to encourage you to try it, at least go to these introductory trainings that Bruce mentioned. And now I can move on to phone banking. We'll quickly round that out. Then we can take some calls, questions. Okay, so phone banking. For all the same reasons, we're calling California, Nevada, Arizona. We're calling those areas every Wednesday and Saturday. The day you show up, you'll see some days you'll be calling Arizona, some days you'll be calling Nevada. It just depends on the week where we're calling. Usually you have an option or two that you can choose from that day. We need English and Spanish callers. So those are sort of what we've been talking about, and that's every Wednesday and Saturday. Then on Sundays, we have a really fun phone bank to North Carolina with All In for North Carolina, the same group that Bruce mentioned. It is such a great phone bank for first timers because guess who we're calling? Really strong Democrats. And guess what we're doing? We're just asking them to volunteer because they're already fired up. So if you're a little hesitant to call strangers, call these friendly Democrats for a first time try. So that's every Sunday afternoon. So I think that's it for phone banking. And then next slide. Just to remember that we have this event calendar, and again, we'll be sending all of the links in the that are going in the chat. We'll be sending them in an email in the next day. So I think we're ready to go to the next slide. So again, if you'd like to stay and chat with our leaders, please stay on the call. We'll answer some more questions then. Sorry, we couldn't do that earlier. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. We really hope to see you soon at one of our upcoming events, a fundraiser, a letter party, a canvas, or a phone bank, so we can work side by side with you to win it all. The White House, the Senate, the House, and more. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.